everybody, what's up? My name is Eric McGrew, and today I am coming to you to talk to you about the CMI California Swivel that I have here. The reason it's in my hand and not on my saddle is because I no longer use this swivel, but I will talk to you about the pros and cons of it and let you make a decision for yourself. So here's the thing about this swivel. It has its pros and cons like everything. Once again, if you look at some of my early Instagram photos and videos, you'll see this is actually on my saddle. It was my bridge device for some time. And this one shows a little bit of wear. You can see the anodizing coming off here and in the areas where carabiners connected and things like that. Reason I bought this swivel was a little bit of a lack of understanding, maybe, I guess, according to or in connection with some of the other swivels. But also, I just thought it would be a little bit more organized because I am super anal about things being organized with my climbing gear. And so I thought this would be a good option. Now, I'll say up front that California or CMI makes good products. They're very functional, they're good quality, but they're not the highest quality, in my opinion, from a machining standpoint. That's not to say that they're unsafe or bad. They're not. They meet all the standards needed, and you can look at all their specs and things. There are just certain nuances in them that, to me, make them a little less fluid in comparison to some other products out on the market. But they are a good price. So therefore, I buy some of their stuff. Like I run a CMI foot ascender. I like that foot ascender. It's not as good as some of the other foot ascenders I've climbed on, but I wear through the straps pretty quickly. And on that ascender, I can't change the strap. So spending $70 on that strap versus, $100 on or $70 on that ascender versus $100 on another ascender, I'd rather just buy that ascender and use it. But that's what I'm talking about. It's a value product to me. The value is there in the sense that it works well and the quality is good, but it's definitely not the highest end product on the market. Their finish is just not as refined. Like in this swivel, for instance, when you spin it slowly, there's a catch, which means they probably had a bushing that has a split on one side and they closed it and slipped it down in there or something like that. That's usually what causes something like that. There's no tolerance give in it. There's no like slack. Well, there's a little bit there, but very, very little bit. Nothing that makes me think it's going to start to decline in wear and be bad. There's just that little catch, and I can feel it using it, and it just annoys me. Yes, I know it's minor. Most people wouldn't even notice it. But coming from a manufacturing and a designing background, I do notice things like that. And it doesn't mean that it's low quality. It just means that typically when you have something like that, it's going to wear faster than one that doesn't have that feeling. But it does spin smoothly. Now, I will say that after having used it with the side loading of weight and things like that, it does spin faster than it originally did. It was a bit tighter in the tolerance, but with anything, just the friction wear and the weight and all that kind of stuff, it's going to wear in a little bit. But that being said, I don't feel like it's out of true. I don't feel like there's so much slack that it would become a hazard of weight distribution or forces. And the anodizing on this, I don't know how well you guys can see it, but the anodizing on this is not bad at all. It little bit nicked up from carabiners and things here. I ended up using these side holes less than I thought I would. And one of the reasons for that is, honestly, I found personally that I like to run 2 bridges versus 1 because I know a lot of people run like V-rigs and M-rigs, whatever you want to call them, off of one device, which, of course, this is designed for, or even like the hitchhiker, or the hitch climber, the hitch climber pulley is with the 3 holes and different things. It has all these functions, and one of them is, of course, using it for multiple links for that kind of stuff. I don't like one bridge device containing all those points, not because I feel unsafe with it or anything like that. I just find that it limits my movement more versus having two bridge devices running with a line on each. And that's of course a whole nother topic, but that's when you're not using it as a trolley or something like that. You're just using it for work positioning and distribution of weight and balance and stuff, right? If you're working with a trolley, then you want 3-on-1 so you can slide across or whatever it is on a pulley. But that's a different topic. So as a general rule, I didn't use all three of these holes on it. This one here, so the pros definitely are that for me, it's a huge pro that it's one of the few out on the market that have 3 independent holes, because I like the idea of the organization of your carabiners not clanging against each other and that kind of stuff. And it keeps them oriented a little bit better than some of the others. I do like that it's like beefy, in its construction. And I like that it's not a pulley, right? I'll go into why I like pull or friction devices on my bridge versus pulleys in another episode, but I do like the fact that this one is not a pulley. In the short of it, I find that it just makes it more controllable for my work positioning at angles when I'm rotating my body and my hips. The construction of it overall is, very well done in the sense that there's no sharp edges that I feel like potentially are going to cut my bridge or cause an issue for safety, like that. These are a little sharp. I was a little, surprised at how hard of an edge there is on these here, but I found that it didn't come in contact with anything important as a general rule, so I didn't really worry about it. The edges are beveled. They're kind of a sharp angle, but they're beveled off and rounded, so they're not, an issue at all in that sense. But there are a few cons to this as well. So the pros, just real quick to go back over them, organizes your carabiners for your connection points really well. Moves pretty decently for the swivel. No extra slack or play in it. It doesn't feel like it's a cheap quality product by any means. It is a good quality product. All the edges are nice and smooth and don't feel like they're going to cause a major issue in contact with cordage to be a safety issue. Anodizing's pretty decent quality, not the best, but it's decent quality. And the overall design is functional, right, in that sense. And the price is reasonable. I think this one was $80 or $70 or something like that when I bought it. And I bought it on sale. I bought it with a discount. I think they're $100, if I'm not mistaken, on their own. So overall, pretty decent. Now, the cons to this are basically two major ones. One is that the play in there or the movement of the pivot does have that catch in it. And I can feel it through my bridge. I don't like it, but I'm not saying it's a deal breaker. It just makes me think that if I had continued to use it for a long while, it probably would have worn pretty quickly in comparison to some of the other ones that I'm using. Also, it's kind of heavy, honestly speaking, for one device. Like I said, I like to run 2 bridges, 2 devices. This would have been a lot of weight for 2 of these, one on each bridge. So that's kind of cumbersome. And I found that it's cumbersome in general because of the 3 holes. It's just a little big, and it ended up being the function of these 3 holes for managing your connection points didn't outweigh the size of it, in my opinion. So that was kind of a deal. Now, that being said, it's only relatively larger than some of the other ones, like the DMM Wells large pivot that I run. But I'll go into what the difference is in between those in another episode. But in overall, it is larger, and with these shapes, I felt it hit my stomach and stuff more. It wasn't my favorite thing with that. But the biggest complaint I had about this device overall was this section here. So this is the section, of course, where your bridge goes through. And what I found is while the edges aren't sharp, it's not like they're going to cut your bridge by any means. They're definitely rounded and smooth and everything. When I first put it on, the inside coating in here, the powder coating, I assume it's powder coating, it looks like it is, was kind of rough, and it had a lot of friction at first. And then beyond that, sorry, my phone keeps going off. Beyond that, what happened also is that I found, because it's so wide, it caused a lot of friction on the bridge. And then with this fairly sharp radius here, the breakover was very tight on these two sides. The cordage coming through was tight here and tight here. And it caused a lot more friction than I actually liked. So I'd have to like sling my hips a little bit to get my bridge to shift over. And it kind of defeated the whole purpose of running a friction swivel versus a pulley, because pulleys for me tend to roll too fast, and I don't like that jarring feeling or that uncontrolled feeling of shifting sometimes. But in this one, it ended up kind of being the same thing, because I'd have to thrust my hips one way or the other so much that I would overshoot and I would twist more than I wanted to, or not enough, and it was just a bit cumbersome. So that was probably my biggest complaint about this, is that it just didn't glide as smoothly as I would like it to on the bridge. And that's specifically because of the two aspects of this being a sharper breakover than I liked, and this being too wide of a contact patch on the bridge rope. Now, that's just me. And remember, with all my gear and everything on, I'm like 236 pounds, so I'm not a light guy. I'm sure that if you were a lighter guy, maybe in the 150 or 180 range, this would be easier to glide, because your breakover wouldn't be as steep on your ropes, right? Because you're not having as much weight hanging from it and that kind of stuff, and you're not fighting that mass trying to get it to shift. So I'm not specifically saying don't give it a go. I'm just saying, for me, that was kind of the biggest deal breaker for me. So the cons to this, of course, are that it's a bit heavy. Even though you get organized contact points or connection points, it's a bit too big and bulky at the top, so it hit my stomach. I didn't really care for that a whole lot. There's a little bit of a catch in the movement, which indicates to me from my machining experience that there's going to be a wear item there, and I could feel it through the bridge, like especially when I pull and do that, I can feel it resonate through my hands really strong. And then the contact patch here overall was just too large width-wise, and the breakover was too sharp on the bridge, and it made it hard for me to shift my angle like I wanted to. And when I first bought it, the inside of this thing was very rough, and it took a while for the rope to rub that in and make it smooth. I did use it enough to give it a bit of a little, gap or area where the rope ran, and it's got a little indentation in it. But that's normal. I mean, so that is a pro. Their coating is good enough that even though the aluminum started to wear from the rope bridge running through there, it did not wear the coating off yet. So that's a good thing. I mean, that shows quality. So once again, I don't think that CMI is a bad company. I think they're a good quality company. I just find them to be a high middle range company in quality products. And I've used a number of their products. I have a hand ascender, my foot ascenders from them. I have some pulleys from them and things like that. I buy from them because the value is there. They're a reasonable price. They're lower than some of the higher end companies. And for those products that I choose to buy, it works well enough for my needs, but it's not the highest end quality out there, but it's good enough. Unfortunately, I just didn't like this that much. So once again, price is reasonable. It has 3 connection points that help organize your connections. It has a wide area for your bridge to roll through if you want a little bit more friction over a pulley. It has decent coating on it, nothing sharp to cut your ropes or anything like that. It's got a quality enough pivot system in there, bushing and things, no slack, like doesn't feel cheap by any means. Decent price. I don't remember if I mentioned that or not. So overall, decent in that sense, but the cons to it are it's heavy. It's a little bit bulky at the top for sure. The contact patch is a little wide for my preference, and the breakover is a little bit sharp. So it was just a little harder than I like to shift, and then I feel that catch, that little click every time it moves past a certain point, which means there's probably a joint in the bushing in there, which I didn't particularly think was awesome, which I could feel through my bridge and things. And then even though you can organize your carabiners and connection points, the size of it overall wasn't worth the extra diameter and width and size because it hit my stomach, so I didn't care for that a whole lot. But other than that, you might like it, especially for the price. If you're looking for something that's not a pulley on your bridge but has 3 connection points, that might be it. So I'll put a link to one of these in the description. If it's on gaparboristsupply.com, I'll put it through there. They have great prices, great guys. They know what they're doing. They have good shipping, and you should definitely give them a go. They're my preferred arborist supply store right now, and I'm not paid to say that. I'm saying this on my own initiative, and they have good pricing, so go check them out. Other than that, yeah, I hope you guys are liking my videos. Thanks for stopping by. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, check out my Elevated Office podcast, and check out my Instagram, and all of those will be down in the description of this video as well. And if you're watching the podcast version, or listening to the podcast version of this, I should say, there'll also be descriptions or links in the description of the podcast for all that as well. So thanks again, and I hope to see you guys in the next one or hear from you. Leave comments if you would like to. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on all this stuff, and I'll produce another podcast as soon as I can. So talk to you soon. Bye.